Shields up, Ironbreakers. Workon here, coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Fire Emblem Three Houses for the Nintendo Switch. This title was sent to me by Nintendo so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. However, this particular video is not a full-on review because I only got my code yesterday, and since then, I've only been able to put about 8 hours into the game. However, I did have quite a number of requests from people asking me for my opinion on Fire Emblem Three Houses, so I figured that the best thing that I could do is give you guys my initial impressions from those 8 hours or so of gameplay. Having said that, if you guys are curious as to what the beginning hours of Fire Emblem Three Houses look like, you can check that out on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/workon. The latest streams, you will find like a 6-hour live stream of Fire Emblem Three Houses if you want to check out the beginning of that game to make up your mind if that is something that you want to get into or not. So anyway, what is Fire Emblem Three Houses all about? Well, I think that the Fire Emblem franchise pretty much speaks for itself. Most people will know about the Fire Emblem franchise. As a matter of fact, probably most of the people watching this video will know more about Fire Emblem than me, because by the time that I got into Nintendo products was with the Wii U, and as far as I can remember, there really wasn't the Fire Emblem on the Switch. There was like that whole Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but that's not really a Fire Emblem game. And then I played some Fire Emblems on the 3DS, but as you guys know, I struggle with the 3DS because whenever I'm home and I'm in front of a big TV, it's like I don't want to play on a small screen, so I've struggled with that as well with the Monster Hunter series, as you guys are well aware, which is why this particular Fire Emblem being on the Switch was such a big deal for me, because I want to get into a Fire Emblem game, and being able to play it on the big screen is a big deal for me personally. Call me shallow, whatever you want, but yeah, I have played some of the other Fire Emblems on the 3DS. I greatly enjoy those. I think they are a lot of fun, but I never delve too in-depth into them. Now, having said that, the defining characteristic that I would attribute to this particular Final Fantasy, it's almost as if you do a crossover between Final Fantasy and Persona, because a lot of the systems present in Fire Emblem Three Houses remind me of stuff that you do in Persona titles. Stuff like you have the calendar, and the days go by, and you have to choose what to do with the time that is allotted to you. You have one free day per week that you can kind of decide which actions you will take, and a lot of these actions usually involve social interactions with the different members of your team and with the characters that you actually play with in the game. And that, I would say, is probably one of the biggest departures from previous Final Fantasy games that I've played, because I know that a lot of you will say, oh, but previous Final Fantasy, did I say Final Fantasy? I meant to say Fire Emblem, naturally. It's just I've been playing too much Final Fantasy 14, sorry about that. But that is one of the biggest defining characteristics of this particular Fire Emblem when compared with the other ones. And I know that a lot of you will say, previous Fire Emblem games also had a lot of social interactions and all of this stuff, and I know, I'm aware of that, but believe me when I tell you that they go way more in depth into those systems in this one. However, before we get in depth into all of these different topics, let's start by talking about the visuals. Visually, I think the game looks pretty good. However, there is something about the art style that I find a little bit off, and this might be something very specific to me, but I find that these stylized characters, because these characters very much look like the characters, if you guys have ever seen videos of gameplay of Fire Emblem Warriors, which was also another game that was available for the Switch. It was a Warriors game, kind of in the veins of Dynasty Warriors. If you guys have seen footage of that, that is the same style that they are utilizing for the characters in this game. However, like the structures themselves and the textures of the floor and everything surrounding them appears to look a little bit more towards the realistic side. So you have these really anime-looking characters inserted into this a little bit more realistic textured backdrops. And sometimes, I don't know, I just feel like you get into certain situations, particularly when you're playing on the big screen, that things don't mesh as well. But that's just me being a little bit nitpicky with the art style. If you are playing undocked, though, you're probably not even going to notice this all that much. However, on the big screen, you know, it stands out a little bit more so. But none of this really interferes with your gameplay experience. Like I said, it is not super jarring. It's just something that sometimes pops out. You're like, this, I don't know, there's something weird about this. Or maybe that's just me. Again, maybe I'm just being a little bit too nitpicky, but that is not something that I would put against the game. It is just something that I found a little bit weird. But having said that, like I said, the game itself looks pretty good. I really like the style that they use in these characters. I think the characters themselves look pretty good. You get to select the gender of your character pretty much with the character creation, but that is all you can do. You can't really customize like haircuts, the color of your eyes, none of that stuff. You don't customize the voice of your character, which that is actually one of the things that I thought was kind of weird, because I mean, if you don't really get to customize your character all that much, you do get to give them a name so that, you know, you have like your name whenever someone is talking to you. They will say, oh, something, and then Rurikhan might show up in the bottom or something like that. But that's pretty much the extent of the customization. You give your character a name, you select this gender, that's it. And that was one of the things that I wish, well, if that's the way that you're going to be doing it, then don't have a silent protagonist. I really wish the protagonist was voiced. Again, this is another subject that I've talked about a long time ago. I personally prefer voiced protagonists. That's actually something that maybe you guys can let me know in the comment section how you feel. Would you rather your character be voiced? Would you rather your character be silent? Let me know. Let's have a chat about that in the comment section. But yeah, in this game, your character is mostly silent, which then becomes a little bit weird, because sometimes whenever you achieve a victory over a unit in the battlefield or something, your character will speak, and then you're like, why can't you speak in the cutscenes? It would be so much cooler if you actually said something during the cutscenes themselves. Maybe that just wouldn't be feasible because of the ridiculous amount of cutscenes that you will encounter throughout the game. Maybe that is the case. I don't really know. Either way, you begin, and you're basically the son of a mercenary who's taught you everything you know, and you get very quickly introduced to these three younglings, which are from three different houses in the kingdom, and you defend them from these bandits, and then you have to go like to this monastery or whatever, at which point you will basically become a teacher for one of these three houses, and each of the houses is going to have like their own units, so to speak, so their own characters that you will interact with as you progress through the game. And each of the houses also has its specific leader. So there is the Alliance of Leicester. I don't know how to pronounce that particular word all that well. For some reason, I find it really weird. I think it's Leicester. That's just the way that they say it, but the way that it is written is completely different, so it always throws me off. They are the Golden Deer House. There is the Black Eagles, which is the Empire of Drestia, I think. I'm sorry if I get these names wrong. It was really late last night when I was playing this. And then there are the Blue Lions of the Holy Kingdom of something. I really can't remember this last one. And you have to pick one of those three houses, and that pretty much dictates the units that you will be playing with at the start, as well as which leader you will be interacting with the most. So you might be a little bit surprised, like I was, if you begin playing the game and it's almost like, I don't know, 10 minutes into the game, they're just like, okay, here you go, pick the house. And I'm like, can I get some more background first? But the first time that you actually pick them is not super important, so you can pick whatever you want. And then you actually get to interact with each of the characters within each of the houses to really make a more informed decision as to which house you wish to teach in this church monastery. Now, I personally went with the Black Eagles because there was a lady there with an axe, and just the way her attitude just kind of really captivated me. I believe that is what most people are picking because it's been called flavor of the month in my live stream. I was kind of indecisive between that and the Blue Lions, but the Blue Lions felt a little bit goody two-shoes. And in regards to the Golden Deer, they just didn't feel appealing at all, not to mention that they were just basically like a bunch of like nobles and whatever, and I was like, whatever. But then again, all of the houses really are chock full of nobles, but that's neither here nor there. So you get to pick which one of these houses you will play throughout the game, and that will start you off on your campaign. You can then, like, if you want to, you can start a new game and you can pick a different house to experience a different storyline, to interact with different characters and whatnot. However, even if you pick, a house and there's like characters from the other houses that you like, you might be able to recruit them. There's a couple of characters that you won't be able to recruit. However, let's say like, I like this specific character in this house. you might be able to recruit. The characters that you can't recruit are the leaders of the house and the seconds in command of the house. But anything else, at least I think, is fair game, as well as other characters that will show up throughout the story. You'll be able to recruit those as well. Now, a very important thing that I feel that I should mention is that the game takes a while to get going. Like, within those 8 hours that I've played, I think I might have done 4 battles, and I think I'm about to go into my 5th battle, which is going to be an optional battle that I will be taking, because I mean, there are some optional battles in between the scenarios that you will be able to select. Okay, I want to do this optional battle, or you can just do other activities and then eventually go to your next main battle. But yeah, 8 hours and 4 battles, I thought that was a little bit less than I was expecting, because they spent quite a bit of time introducing all of the mechanics to you, as well as all of the social systems that are in the game. And I think I'll start by talking about exploring. Actually, let's start by talking about the calendar. So the way that the game works is there's a calendar, and you're a teacher, so you have to decide activities to do with your students. You have to decide what you want your students to focus on. So each character is going to have a certain set of biases that they will want to follow. So you might have a character that wants to be an axe user and a sword user. So their preferred skills, their goals, are going to be to follow in the studies of using axes and swords. And as you decide what each of these characters' goals are, that will then unlock different advanced classes that you'll be able to upgrade those characters into. I'm mostly saying this for people that have never played a Fire Emblem game, because I'm pretty sure that people who have played Fire Emblem games are aware of how this stuff works. You'll then be able to choose different classes for each of these characters as they advance with their different skills, which does give you quite a big degree of min-maxing as well as micromanaging each of these units. Now, you can leave a lot of this stuff to auto if you want to, if you really don't want to engage with all of that min-maxing. The game has a lot of systems that's just like, just auto do everything, and the game will automatically manage this stuff for you. However, I personally, as someone who is a big min-maxer, whenever I start playing pretty much any video game, I wanted to really get into nitty-gritty of everything. So one of the things that is also important is that despite the fact that some characters might be focused on some skills, they might be able to gain like special abilities and stuff like that if you select different skills for them to focus on. So naturally, I went through every character, looked at every single thing that they wanted to do, and I was like, no, you are going to ride a horse. And she's like, I don't want to ride a horse. That's pretty much how I started, managing that aspect of the game. But again, you don't have to engage with this system any more than you have to. There are auto systems, but probably if you're playing on the harder difficulties, which is my case, I'm playing on hard classic, you might want to engage in that. By the way, if you play in classic, whenever a character dies, they die for good. It's permadeath, so keep those things in mind. But yeah, so that is one of the aspects. You get to choose what you want to teach to each of your students, and then there's this whole social aspect of it where whenever you interact with the student, that will increase their motivation, which then when you are teaching them, your teachings will basically be more efficient. You will get more turns to teach them stuff, and you will be able to teach them more stuff the more motivated they are. We'll get into the social aspects of it. So basically, after you decide the stuff that you want them to focus on, you can also decide certain activities for them to do together in order to further their bond, because whenever characters have a bond, they're more effective within the field of battle. This is standard stuff for tactical RPGs like this, so that whenever they're fighting side by side, they will be better. And naturally, your own character can form bonds with all of these other characters that you have access to. So you develop their skills, you select their students' plan and all of this stuff, and then the calendar starts moving forward. And usually at the end of each month, there will be like a major battle that you will have to fight. And this is why I say it reminds me a lot of Persona, because it's like, oh, so for the next 2 weeks or so, we have time to do whatever we want. We can go into dungeons and do whatever. And then when these 2 weeks end, we have to be done with the palace, so to speak, in terms of Persona terms. And here it is a battle. However, whereas in Persona, you had to go to the palace a couple of times before to really explore it, before you got to your deadline. In this game, when you get to the deadline, here's the battle. let's fight, and if you fail, there's a save game, you get to do the fight again. That's pretty much how all of that stuff works. And now the other thing that really reminds me of Persona is whenever you have those free days. Now I told you earlier in this video that as the days advance the month, usually you get Sundays free and you can do whatever you want. Now, sometimes you can do seminars, which further increase the skills of your characters. Other times you can do either practice battles or side quests with your students, and you can take them onto battle so that you can level them up and stuff like that. You can also let them rest, which increases their motivation, or you can explore the monastery, which allows you to actually interact with your students. And in my opinion, the monastery bit, the exploration of the monastery, is potentially what I like the least in Fire Emblem Three Houses, because there's just usually so many interactions that you kind of have to go through if you are someone like me that wants to see all of the things that you can actually do. Now, they will tell, like, okay, so for this exploration thing, there's like 3 quests that you have to do, and all of the quests that I've had to do throughout in these 8 hours have always been FedEx quests. Like, you go to a character and be like, oh, I need you to go pick this thing up for me. And you go there and you pick it up and then you bring it to them and they're like, oh yeah, thanks, that's awesome. And you gain experience and you might gain skill ups and stuff like that. But it's just FedEx quests, which do advance the story a little bit. And when you are doing these exploration things, you are awarded time to do activities, which pretty much works like the whole Persona thing of when you are going out and you're like, okay, you have the afternoon free until you use one of those time slots to like go watch a movie or go study with someone or something like that. It's the same thing here, except naturally the activities are going to be different. So you can choose to have a meal with someone and that will increase their motivation, or you can choose to learn something from someone and that will increase your skills, or you can choose to go and do choir activities, which will increase people's motivation or decrease depending on the activities that you actually pick. The game is very good at letting you know what things people like, so that you can optimize, like, okay, I want to improve the motivation of these characters, so I probably want to take them out for lunch, and I want them to eat this specific meal. So those are some of the things that you can do. Again, there's probably going to be more activities that will be unlocked as you play through the game, because I'm still basically at the beginning. 8 hours in a Fire Emblem game is not really that much. And this will develop the motivation of your class, which then in turn is going to be a net positive for when you go back to teaching mode, which is usually happens on Mondays, and you can then go in a one-on-one session with them and teach them more stuff because they're motivated to learn. So you do the exploration of the monastery stuff to develop your social connections with all of these characters. The more motivated they are, the better they are at learning their skills, the more effective they will become in battle. And naturally, doing this social stuff will also increase bonds with characters, which will in turn trigger sometimes specific cutscenes of stories about those characters, which will give you more information in the background of those characters. I'm not sure if it's going to be possible for you to really get to know every single character in the game in a single playthrough. Particularly if you're going in blind. So, you're going to have to kind of like pick and choose. I want to dedicate some time to this character and this character. I don't really like this character, so screw him. And that's kind of how the choices that you will have to make. And as you can tell, I've spent much more time talking about the social aspects of the game than necessarily the battle system, which you might find kind of weird, but yeah, that's because there's a really, really big emphasis on the social aspects. And now you guys are like, okay, so why don't you like the exploration of the monastery all that much? Because I feel like there's too much to do. Even though they give you certain quests, and if you want to min-max and be super efficient, maybe you just do the quests and you peace out. But a lot of times you'll be able to engage in dialogues with certain characters, and that will increase that character's motivation, and that could be important if you really want to super min-max. Not to mention that you'll be able to find items hidden throughout the monastery. You'll be able to plant stuff and then collect it. You'll be able to fish. You'll be able to engage on just so much stuff to do. But the thing is, it's not combat. See, and I'm just like, I want to go back to the combat, but at the same time, I also want to make sure that I tick all of these boxes during the exploration of the monastery, which is why I found that side of it a little bit tedious. But yeah, so now let's talk about the actual combat. The combat is fairly solid. And this time around, we don't actually have the weapon triangle, which used to be like, I don't remember what it was. I think it was swords beat spears, spears beat axes. Or was it spears beat swords, axes beat spears? I don't know. There was a weapon triangle like that, which certain weapons would beat other weapons. That's not really the case now. There are, however, certain weapons that are particularly effective against heavy armor. There are other weapons that are effective against flyers, like arrows are very good against flyers, and so on and so forth. So you do have a system where some weapons are more efficient against some things, but there is no weapon triangle. However, there's always a preview before you engage in combat with a unit that will let you know before you make your decision, like what the outcome of the combat is going to be, so that you can kind of like, okay, I'm going to put this unit here. And, you know, you can kind of like play the whole chess game of like, okay, if I do this, then he's going to do this, and then I'm going to take this damage, and he's going to take this damage. And naturally, there's going to be some random elements in there, like sometimes your characters will dodge, sometimes your characters will do counterattack, sometimes your characters will have more speed. Well, I guess speed is really random, but if your characters have more, significantly more speed, I think it's 4 more speed than the character that they are fighting against, they'll be able to attack twice. There's a bunch of stuff like that. There is equipment. If you've never played a Fire Emblem game, the way that it works is you equip your characters with weapons, and whenever they use those weapons, they use up the durability. When the durability is up, the weapon is broken, and your character is not going to be as efficient with that particular weapon. You're going to have to replace that weapon with a new one. So weapons are kind of like a stamina system for your actions almost. And spells is basically like you get a certain number of spells per battle for each spellcaster, and after you're done with those spells, you're done. There are certain things, if you are playing in online mode, where you can pick up like these glowing orbs that show up in the ground from other players, like where other players defeated powerful enemies or where other players have died. You can pick up certain things. Sometimes you get weapons, sometimes you get buffs, sometimes you might be able to replenish some of your spells. But yeah, that's kind of how you have to plan stuff out. There's always things that allow you to see where enemies are able to attack. They actually done something really good, which is as you are planning the movement of your character, they will let you know if an enemy unit can attack that character and if an enemy unit will attack that character if you move it to that specific position, which actually makes the whole experience much more intuitive. In previous Fire Emblem games, you know, you could just see the squares that the other units could take on. You can still do that in this one, but just having that little line that pops up whenever you are advancing your character is very, very intuitive, and it makes it a lot easier for you to make your decisions. Okay, if I move this character here, this thing's going to happen. If I move this character there, that thing's going to happen, and that allows you to really plan out the stuff that you are going to do. So basically, that is Fire Emblem Three Houses, my initial impressions. Personally, I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. I like the story so far. It's been really good. All of the story is voice acted with the exception of your own character. I just noticed that I haven't even talked about the sounds. The game sounds are really good. The music is also pretty good. And yeah, it's like you go through the calendar. At the end of the month, there's a major battle. Whenever you have free time, you can choose to go do other battles, or you can choose to do seminars. You can choose to min-max your characters in different ways. There is a lot, and I do mean a lot, of micromanaging these different units, of selecting the units that you want to have, of developing the skills that you need in order to recruit other units, and I probably haven't even touched on other systems that might have even not showed up. Throughout the months, naturally, other events will take place. There's also like birthdays where you buy flowers for each of the units, which increases their motivation whenever it's their birthday, so long as you have enough money. And yeah, I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. The one big thing that kind of turns me off is the monastery exploration. I don't know how other people feel about it. I'm actually curious if you are playing Fire Emblem Three Houses right now. Let me know how you feel about that particular aspect of the game. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit it up with a like. Sorry if I ranted on, not really ranted, but if I just like raved on a little bit more than what was expected for this video. I know that it's definitely a little bit longer than I was expecting, but yeah, any likes, if you guys do enjoy the video, would be really appreciated. It really helps me out. It really supports the channel and helps the video get spread out to more people. Or if you didn't enjoy the video, hit up with a dislike, because feedback is also extremely important. If you usually enjoy my content, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification icon, because if you just subscribe, YouTube's not really going to tell you whenever I put up my next video. Comments and feedback in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching. Stay strong, and may your shields never break.